Hey Cake Chomps, and welcome back to my channel. I hate to mention the dreaded C word, but do you realise we are only 5 weeks away from Christmas? I think it's 5 weeks. I'm actually going to check. How long till Christmas? 34 days. Oh gosh, that's like 4 weeks, 5 days. Do you realise we're only 4 weeks and 5 days away from Christmas Day? Which means that this coming Sunday is the last Sunday before the start of Advent, traditionally known as Stir Up Sunday, which is the day that we cake makers bake our Christmas cakes and puddings. So in this week's video, we're going to be talking all things Christmas cakes, specifically how to fake it or how to bake it. Let's get to the video. So it has been absolutely ages since I last uploaded a video. I'm not going to bore you with all the details as to why, but what I will do is link my latest blog post in the comments down below so you can go and have a read about what I've been up to since my last video. But you may recall that last time we spoke, I launched a very exciting competition to win a massive bundle of cake decorating goodies. They're still sat right over here, waiting for me to announce the winner and get them sent out to them. So panic not, I will be doing that at the end of this week's video. You've probably forgotten you entered, if I'm honest, it's been so long. I'll announce the winner right at the end, so do stay tuned. So the 4 options I wanted to explore in this video were a supermarket cake, a ready to bake bag with all the pre-prepared ingredients inside, sourcing a plain cake for decorating from a bakery, or of course making it from scratch. I have an itchy eye. Now, I went to Sainsbury's this morning, and then I went to Asda, and I went to Tesco's, and when it comes to the bag of ready-made, I really don't know how to explain it. It's like a kit with all the ingredients that you need to make your Christmas cake, and you just buy that bag and make it yourself. They don't seem to be a thing anymore. I don't know if it was like a really short-lived phenomenon, or whether just this year they're not doing them, but for whatever reason, none of the supermarkets where I live had the kits that allow you to bake your own Christmas cake with all the stuff inside. So, lesson learned, research your videos further in advance than I do, but I did manage to track down a supermarket cake, I managed to track down some bakery cakes, and I also have got a recipe to bake my own. Now, if you are feeling particularly lazy, you could of course just go out and buy a ready-made Christmas cake, in which case this might be an option for you. So this is the Sainsbury's Taste the Difference Holly Wreath Iced Fruit Cake infused with brandy. I think this one cost me about £8 and it serves 12. It's about 6 inches in diameter. It is very shallow. For those of you who know my cakes and have seen my baking, you'll know that I like a really deep cake. This is not a really deep cake. I did actually see a larger one in Asda, but I'd already bought this one by that point, so I can only eat so much fruitcake after I finish this video. But yes, if you do want to buy ready-made, Asda have a bigger one than this, and I'm sure other shops may also have them too. But this is a cake decorating channel after all, so hopefully you're here planning to at least decorate your own Christmas cake, in which case you can also buy that Sainsbury's cake plain. So again, this is a rich fruit cake infused with brandy from the Sainsbury's Taste the Difference range, and this one also serves 12. Now this one definitely is 6 inches, I have measured it, but you'll see again it is really, really shallow, possibly 2 inches if I'm being generous. I don't know how much of a kind of centerpiece to your Christmas table this would make, but that's just what it looks like. We will also be taste testing these later as well. Another option, of course, is you could source your cake from a bakery. I've been very lucky in the past to have worked with a company called Sweet Success, which are an online bakery who make a variety of different cakes that you can order, have sent out to you, and then decorate them yourselves. I know some cake decorators use companies like Sweet Success exclusively, and they just decorate the cakes that they buy in. I've personally used them when I've created kind of the big showpiece cakes for like Cake International, because they are very generous and they will quite often sponsor us when we do those massive showpieces. So I reached out to them to tell them that I was making this video, and Sweet Success very kindly agreed to sponsor me, sending me out everything I could possibly need to make a Christmas cake. A massive, massive thank you to Sweet Success. I'll put their information down below in case you are planning on buying in your Christmas cake. And then when it comes to the recipe, the scratch recipe, I actually put a poll up on my Instagram this morning asking you guys which one you thought I should use. I normally bake the Delia Smith Christmas cake recipe for my Christmas cakes, but I've seen a lot of people kind of raving about Maryberry's over the last couple of years, so I thought rather than make the decision myself, I would let you guys decide. So I was at the supermarket earlier on, and while I was there I had a quick look, and the winner was Maryberry with a very decisive lead. So we will be baking Maryberry's Christmas cake recipe. Then what we'll do once I've done that is we'll bring them back together. So we'll have the Sainsbury's one, we'll have the Sweet Success one, and we will have the Maryberry one. And we'll have a look at them, we'll have a taste of them, and then we'll see which one we think is the best. So I guess we better move this into the kitchen. Okay, so we've relocated into the kitchen, and as I say, we will be baking Maryberry's Christmas cake recipe today. I literally just googled Maryberry's Christmas cake recipe and I found it on bbc.co.uk. I'll put the link down in the description box below in case you want to have a go at it. And it says preparation time overnight and cooking time over 2 hours. If you go into the details, it actually says that you need to soak your fruit for 3 days. Now, unfortunately, I don't have 3 days to make this recipe because I want to get this video up tomorrow. So instead what I did is I actually almost cooked the brandy into the fruit. So I put raisins, glacé cherries, sultanas, currants, orange zest and brandy in a giant pan, and then just warmed it gently over a low heat for about half an hour. Just to cook that brandy into the fruit, and then I've left it to cool. It's still not quite as good as letting the fruit sit for 3 days apparently, but it should still give us the same sort of effect. And if my mum's watching, don't panic mum, this isn't the Christmas cake I'm going to give you. I will do yours properly, I promise. Don't want to get into trouble. Ingredients wise, it's not actually as bad as I remember. I'm sure every year I think, oh gosh, this has cost me a fortune when I'm making my Christmas cakes. But I actually think the reason is because I make so many, of course I buy in bulk, but to make one, you've got raisins, cherries, currants, sultanas, brandy, oranges, butter, muscovado sugar, eggs, treacle, almonds, flour and mixed spice. You generally get probably 2 cakes worth out of those ingredients. So yeah, it's not actually as terrible as for some reason I thought it was in my head. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to do kind of a time-lapsey type thing of me assembling the cake ingredients together, and then we'll whack it in the oven for 4.5 hours. I guess we better get cracking. Okay, so it's now the next day, and you'll see I've actually added a hat to the ensemble, but the rest of me is still very much in the cake-stained outfit of the day before, for continuity purposes. We're going to try not to notice how much stuff I spilled down myself while I was baking. Anyway, so we now have our 3 cakes. Of course, we have the Sainsbury's Rich Fruit Cake, we have the Sweet Success Cake, and we have my take on the Maryberry Cake. Now, I do think it's looking a little dark. I was having some trouble with my oven. Long story short, my oven doesn't run to temperature, so I have to put a thermometer in it and kind of adjust until I hit the temperature that I need. And I was really struggling to get the oven to stay at 120, so it did kind of go over a couple of times. I was kind of playing with the dial constantly throughout the 4.5 hours. Now, the Maryberry Cake is a 9-inch. The Sweet Success, well, they actually very kindly sent me 2, but we're going to go with the, oh, I don't know. I think we'll open the 6-inch just because we're gonna have a lot of fruitcake to eat after this video, and the 8 I can kind of put aside for something else. So I'll show you what you get in the box if you order a Sweet Success cake. So it has all the nutritional information and the ingredients information listed on the front. So if you are a professional cake maker making cakes for customers, you can still provide all the kind of key information, allergens and so on. And then inside it comes with a guide to cutting your cake, and then the cake itself is really well packaged. So it's tissue paper, there's more tissue paper, there's a cardboard sleeve, and then of course the cake itself in the middle. What I really love about the cakes from Sweet Success is that they're still in kind of the greaseproof or the baking paper that they baked them in, so you really do know that you are getting a bakery baked cake just through the mail. It's quite clever, really. The guide to cutting your cake actually is really good information for all of the fruit cakes. Obviously fruitcakes need to mature before you eat them. Usually with Christmas cake you'll feed it brandy over a period of a few weeks leading up to Christmas. And if you try and cut one now before you've let it have that time to mature and before you fed it, it will be very crumbly. So that's something to take into account today while we're looking at these. If they are crumbly, it's no reflection on the recipe at all. It is purely that they haven't had time to mature yet. So I'm going to open the Sweet Success cake, he says, and then we'll literally do a kind of a side-by-side comparison of all of them. Bear in mind again, the Sainsbury's cake is a 6-inch, the Sweet Success cake we're looking at is a 6-inch, and the Maryberry is a 9-inch, just because that's what the recipe called for. Appearance-wise, I think it's definitely fair to say that the Sainsbury's cake isn't quite so centrepiecey, as I said earlier. We've already said that my Maryberry cake is looking a little bit brown, but other than that, it's a nice size, it's got some real depth to it, and I like the fact that you can kind of see the different ingredients peeking out the top. However, I think kind of the neatest looking that still has the depth is the Sweet Success cake, and actually it's got more depth to it than I was able to achieve on the Maryberry recipe as well. Of course you could play with tin sizes and the recipe quantities to try and replicate that, but just based on these 3 cakes that I've got in front of me here, I think appearance-wise Sweet Success is currently in the lead. When it comes to depth, I'll be honest with you, I tend to stack my Christmas cakes anyway. As I said earlier in the video, I really like a deep cake, and that's still true even when it's a Christmas cake. So quite often what I will do is I'll bake 2 Christmas cakes of the same size, and then I'll level them off with my cake leveler and then sandwich them together with apricot jam, which gives me then the double depth that I would normally want in one of my cakes. So that's still an option. If you do find yourself with less of a rise, you could always put a few together. I guess the most important criteria for this comparison is the taste. And so I've got my knife, and I'm going to cut a slice of each of the 3 cakes. We'll give them a taste, and then we'll see what we think. Sweet Success do provide a cutting guide. If you're someone who struggles to cut fruit cake, they recommend a sharp serrated knife and to use a sawing motion to make sure that you reduce the kind of the smushing, I guess, when you're cutting. Just cutting cakes now. So there is our Sainsbury's cake. Definitely got a good amount of fruit in there. It feels quite nice and moist. Just a reminder, of course, that these cakes haven't been matured yet, so they may well still be a little bit crumbly anyway. There's our slice of Sweet Success cake. As a big cherry fan, I'm loving that both the cakes so far have got really obvious cherries kind of throughout the cake. Very important to me. And there's our slice of Maryberry, and I'm dropping crumbs everywhere. So slicing wise, I was able to get a fairly good slice out of all of them, and I'll be honest, even though they're not matured after all that, none of them have really crumbled that much at all, so that's a really good sign. And then of course, the best part of this entire video, I get to eat 3 lots of fruit cake. So I'm going to start with the Sainsbury's again. We'll take some off, and a nice big bit of cherry in there. So I'm getting the fruit, I'm getting the brandy, it's nice and moist. Happy with that. I'd be happy to eat a slice of that if somebody gave it to me. Now the Sweet Success cake, I believe, is actually cooked with sherry rather than brandy, so I wonder what impact that will have on the flavour. Again, it's really moist, packed with fruit. There's some nuts in there as well, which is really nice. Gives it a bit of texture. And there's peel as well. I'm a big fan of peel. Maryberry's recipe did not have peel, speaking of which. Again, I'm getting the fruit, I'm getting the brandy. I could cope with more brandy, but of course, if I was to feed this cake over the next few weeks, it would have more brandy in it, so you would get more brandy. Kind of feel like it's missing something. I'm not sure. I'm definitely getting a much bigger pack of brandy from the Sainsbury's than I am from the Maryberry. I think, to be honest, taste-wise, I'd be happy to have any of them on my table at Christmas. Now, it's the first time I've done a comparison video like this, as you can probably tell. But I feel like I should do some sort of like infographic type thing where we literally compare them all so you have some like data to go on. So I'm going to give each cake a score out of 5 based on its appearance, based on its flavour, based on its moistness, and then like an overall score, which is the average of the 3. When it comes to the Sainsbury's cake, I think the one thing that really does let it down is its appearance. So I'm going to give it appearance probably a 2 out of 5. It looks like a perfectly acceptable cake, but a Christmas cake, in my opinion, should be a centerpiece of your celebration, and a 2-inch tall cake like that isn't going to give you a centerpiece. So I might be being a cake snob, and if I am, I'll put my hands up and say sorry, but I'm only going to give the appearance of the Sainsbury's cake a 2. Taste-wise, actually really pleasantly surprised. You get the fruit, you get the brandy, it's really, really nice. I'd be quite happy to eat it. And so in which case I would give it, taste-wise, a very solid 4 out of 5. And then in terms of kind of the moistness, the structure, how easy it was to cut, again, no complaints at all. I would give it a 4, and I think if I had the opportunity to feed some extra alcohol into it just before I decorated it, that could easily be a 5. Not bad at all, and that gives the average score as 3.5 if we round to the nearest 0.5. Next up we have the Sweet Success cake, and I'll be honest with you, I've already said of the 3, I think it looks the best. If you compare the edges of the 2 cakes, so that's the Sweet Success, and that's the Maryberry. Can you see how the Sweet Success doesn't have all the kind of the pock marks? If you look at the top of the Maryberry cake, you have the fruit kind of popping up slightly, which can catch and burn, which there isn't any of on the Sweet Success cake. So I think they've clearly mastered a way of sealing all that fruit inside so it doesn't catch, and it also gives you a nice smooth surface for decorating as well. Literally, I don't see how it could be improved, so I would give appearance-wise the Sweet Success cake 5 out of 5. Taste-wise, also very tasty. It's got the sherry rather than the brandy, which I appreciate is a personal preference, But for me, that's the one thing stopping the flavour of that cake being a 5 out of 5. I love brandy in my Christmas baking. I think brandy is a very Christmassy flavour, and so I'm going to knock that mark off for it being sherry instead. But that still gives them a very respectable 4 out of 5. And then we come to kind of the moistness, the texture, and again, it has cut with no issues. Very little in the way of crumbliness, and so I'm going to give that a 4 out of 5 as well, which gives Sweet Success an average score of 4.5. And then finally, of course, we come to Maryberry. Important to remember that this is my version of Maryberry's recipe. It is not Maryberry's cake. I'm sure she would do a much better job of baking it than I have. Definitely wouldn't have the slight burntness of the edge. But I haven't tasted the edge, in fairness, I have tasted the middle. That being said, appearance-wise, it's a bit rustic. It's got a lot of fruit kind of popping out from the top of the cake, which has caught slightly and does give you a slight burnt taste, regardless of whether or not I'd overcook the cake. And we do have those pock marks around the sides. Interestingly enough, if you do want to avoid those, you can take some of your cake mix before you mix in the fruit and brush it around the edges of your cake pan. That way, when you then put the mixture containing the fruit in, ready to bake, you don't have any kind of gaps, so you don't end up with these little holes, which you need to then fill before you cover the cake. Gosh, that was a lot of words. Anyway, so appearance-wise, I think I'm probably going to give the Maryberry recipe a 4 out of 5. Then, of course, we come to the taste. Now, it does taste really nice. It just has something missing. I honestly don't know what it is. I'm getting fruit, I'm getting brandy, possibly spice. The recipe does call for mixed spice. I wonder if maybe it needs a little bit more. It is missing something. So for that reason, I'm going to give the flavour of Maryberry's recipe a... Hey guys, I'm just editing my video and I've realised that I've completely and utterly read my notes wrong. What I in fact gave Maryberry's cake for flavour was a 3, and the 4 was for the texture. So that's where we got the total from. So Maryberry gets a 4 on appearance, a 3 on flavour, 4 for texture, and an overall score of 3.5. There we go. I would say they're all very respectable scores. I would say nobody has embarrassed themselves or let themselves down, other than possibly me. But if I was to choose one of these cakes to use as my Christmas cake right now, I'll be honest, it would probably be the Sweet Success cake. And that's not just because they've sponsored, it is just because it is the tastiest of the 3. So, if you're someone who is umming and ahhing about what to do with your Christmas cake this year, I actually would heartily recommend buying it in from Sweet Success, particularly if you're feeling like you've left it a little bit late. Obviously, Christmas, as we said yesterday, is just over 4 weeks away. You really do want to have created your Christmas cake kind of by this coming weekend at the very latest, to give you time to feed it with the brandy or the sherry or your chosen spirit or cognac before you decorate it before Christmas. But yeah, I definitely think actually if you're someone who is feeling like you've left it too late, or you don't particularly fancy making your own Christmas cake, I personally would heartily recommend buying one from Sweet Success. And I will be eating the rest of this quite happily. So there you have it guys, that's my official comparison video on what you should do with your Christmas cake. I'll let you decide whether you're going to fake it or whether you're going to bake it. Now before you go, I did promise that I would announce the winner of my mystery box unboxing giveaway. So I put all the names into a hat a few weeks ago now actually, and pulled one out, and I am delighted to announce that the winner is Joanne Thompson. So I'll put your comment just here so that you can see that I mean you. And if you could get in touch with me either via the comments down here, or you can head over to my Facebook page, Mr. Baker's Cakes. We'll arrange getting your prize sent out to you. Thank you so much to everyone who entered my giveaway, and do stay tuned because there will be another one coming up in next week's video, and it's a really exciting one. I can't wait. In the meantime, thank you so much for coming back to Mr. Baker's Cakes here on YouTube. If you did enjoy this video, of course, please do give it a big thumbs up and let me know. And if you haven't yet subscribed to me here on YouTube, you can do that by clicking the red button. In the meantime, I'll see you all next week. Take care.